Welcome to A Galaxy Far Away. I'm Ro from iQuiz, and I brought a special guest today, my partner from that, hashtag Joe.
Hashtag Joe.
It's hashtag Joe, bringing to you Morphin Mondays and all that good stuff that we do.
Yeah.
You've been bothering me, not bothering me.
I have. I called you at midnight the other night to talk to you about Star Wars.
We talk about Star Wars a lot on the phone, and I was like, we should just be doing this on a podcast or something. So I've just got done watching it for the fourth time.
I've seen it 3. I saw it last weekend at the Chinese theater again,
and
I can't help but see it there.
What do you pick up after watching it? So we're just gonna say right now, first, spoiler alert in case you couldn't figure it out. So tune out if you don't want to hear anything because we're gonna get into everything. What do you think after watching it a couple of times? What do you see different?
I love the movie more and more I watch it. It's because I think now that so many things are coming out, and you can start seeing these plot threads play out.
Yeah.
And like one thing that you just did on the countdown for that hashtag show was the cameos. And just looking at it and like watching it, like Kevin Smith, I know that Kevin Smith was in the movie, so I was like eyeing that scene at the bar. I'm like, God, where is this dude?
Yeah, the Force Vision scene. I'm like always like leaning forward, like I gotta hear the voices. I mean, Ewan McGregor is loud and clear at the end, but I still couldn't really quite pick out Yoda
or Sir Alec Guinness.
Yeah, I mean, he's I guess at the beginning, right, Junior? Yeah, at the beginning, and but I'm listening for those things, and I'm gonna definitely see it 2 more times minimum.
I'm at least gonna see it once. At least gonna see it once because it's a movie that I just can't get tired of.
Right,
I cannot get tired of it. It's fun. It's a great popcorn movie.
It is.
And there's so much there.
Right.
And the acting. Listen, I was just thinking about this when Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, and him and Daisy Ridley are in that scene together where she's shackled. All he's doing is doing this.
Yes.
And making facial expressions.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine as an actor, he must be thinking, this looks really stupid right now. However, like, it took a lot for them to act this stuff out and do it not so wooden like the prequels did.
Beautiful cinematography, and of course John Williams add to that, and a scene like that ends up becoming it's this force battle. If you and I acted it out right now, it would look retarded, right? We'd just be going,
just making faces at each other. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Did you cry at all during any of your screenings of the film?
Yeah, and what's funny is that I cried more this last time I watched it than the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
What scene?
Okay, spoiler, the death scene. I just, like, for whatever reason, I was just more focused on it, and the tear came down. But what happened was I was already, like, emotional after that, but the final scene when the main Star Wars theme kicks out and she's looking at Luke Skywalker, and then the music kicks in and I just fully lost it this
There's
time.
2 scenes for me that I pull at my heartstrings. Not so much the death scene because I expected it. Even though every time I watch it, I always want a different outcome. Like I always think that Han's gonna live somehow miraculously. But I think one of the scenes that hits me the most is when Rey picks up the lightsaber for the first time.
Yeah.
Because it's such an iconic moment. And then at the end where she meets Luke and you see Luke and it's like, man, this is full circle. This is what Star Wars is kind of all about.
For sure.
And those scenes got to me.
Yeah, and again during that scene, like I said, I was already emotional. I wasn't bawling or anything when during the death scene, but I got watery eyes, my vision's blurry, start getting emotional. That's like the first full tear when she draws the saber. I'm like, oh man, and the music kicks in, but then that final last jab at the end just cranks it up to 10 for me. And I'm just like, oh.
There was, I don't know if it was speculation. I don't know if we're going to call it speculation. But I think, remember when we got the first, I don't know if it was the leak, I guess, of the treatment of the film? Right. And a lot of people wrote and said, or not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people wrote and said, this doesn't feel like my Star Wars film. This isn't a Star Wars film. Then there was this fake leak about how Finn gets his hand chopped off. Then other people were like, oh, this seems more like Star Wars. I will say this, J.J. Abrams crafted him in what's his name, the Kasdan?
Lawrence Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan. They crafted a brilliant way to tell that story, but they got the characters, and it felt like it was like, oh, this is exactly what a Star Wars movie is.
No, it's and I know that's the big beef with some people, that the bad press that you're seeing about the movie tends to be about they just remade A New Hope. I feel like they had to, from that very first moment when Kylo and Poe Dameron meet, and he goes, Who's going to talk first? I'm going to
I
talk
love
first.
it.
And it's like, oh, we got lighthearted. Okay, we're not going dark.
It set the tone right there. It was completely. Perfect. Matter of fact, I think every scene that Oscar Isaac's in, he almost steals the scene.
Yeah.
If BB-8's not in it, because BB-8 does steal every scene. Almost.
BB-8, I don't know how they put. Once again, because they did it with R2-D2. I don't know how they took this chunk of metal and gave it so much cuddly personality.
I know
it was perfect.
It's a cute little pet, and it's funny because we're talking about a little thing and a ball, and it's just like a cute little like thing.
It blows me away because you become attached to that droid and you start to learn it as a person,
right?
You know, pretty legit. So what about? Okay, let's jump all the way to the end real quick because I'm tired of hearing about this. Did they have to blow up another Death Star?
They didn't have to, but the thing is, it did. I don't think it hurt the movie going experience for me at all.
Yeah.
Like I like you said, it's almost like they had to remake A New Hope,
right?
And they needed somewhere to start. I mean, let's say if it wasn't a Death Star type thing and it was something else, are then people going to be satisfied?
No.
Like it needed to tell this story. It needed to have, and also the thing I did like though is that this was obviously a bigger version of the Death Star,
right?
But it also had consequences.
Yes.
And it was something that made the stakes a little higher.
It did make the stakes higher, but it was interesting to me because they could have just destroyed the weapon, which is what it was about. But they said, "Fuck it, we're gonna blow the whole planet up," and it actually kind of plays into the story because that during that last battle, the Earth splits. I think that's symbolic of the tear because he's like, just before that, he was talking about how the light side and dark side were tearing him apart. So I think it's kind of symbolic. So yeah, it's cool. And then you see the Millennium Falcon, that iconic shot of the planet imploding. I think the planet implodes and actually leaves a sun behind or something like that. You see a big sun in the background. It's a great ending, epic shot, kind of like, you're all clear, kid. Let's blow this thing and go home. You know, it's kind of does the same thing. I had zero problem with it.
I had zero problem with it.
Zero problem with it. But I know a lot of people are talking about that. Some people are talking about the fact that, it's just another droid carrying a message looking for the wise one again, just like this. Some people say, why did Finn flip so easy? All of a sudden, you know, he's this good guy after a lifetime of, which we actually end up learning in some extended literature.
All right, let's bring that up actually, because that was all right. So I called you at midnight, like you said, and we been talking Star Wars for the better part of like 2 weeks now.
Right.
One of the more interesting things you told me was about the book that you bought.
Yes.
What was
Before
it
the Awakening.
Before the Awakening, and it has origin stories basically about Finn.
Yes.
Does it have Rey?
Rey and Poe.
Yes.
Yes.
And Finn had I did not know this. Like, this is the official backstory of all this stuff. So tell.
So Finn was taken as a child and brought into the First Order Academy, the Stormtrooper Academy, and indoctrinated with all this stuff, but it never sat with him. They made it very clear in the book. He was part of a squad of 4 elite stormtroopers in which he was the leader. And actually, these four stormtroopers, we get to see in The Force Awakens, it turns out. And this is confirmed by what's that picture book called? The big one.
The art book?
The art book. They confirmed that one of the cadets was definitely in the movie. So anyways, backstory is, he when he meets Poe, he says, they've only ever called me FN-2187.
Right.
It's because they always considered him an outsider.
All the other ones had names.
All the other ones had nicknames. They're like, so FN-2000, they called him zeros. FN-29999, they called him nines. And this other FN-2 blah, 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 they called him Slip because he was always slipping behind. He was always the last one. That was the interesting part about this book, is that Finn, even though he was considered an outsider, always said, you're one of us, and would always go back to save. In simulation, he would go back to save Slip every time. So Finn has always been about the unit, and that's what got him through the training. He was always like a top cadet, always highest marks, but he was already on Captain Phasma's radar before his first mission to Jakku. He failed his first test mission where they were asked to assassinate some Union leaders, and he couldn't pull the trigger. So he was already under watch by Hux and Finn. And Phasma before that moment. And when he goes into the thing and takes off his helmet, she's right there on top of him.
So she knows.
And she knows. She's like, turn in your blaster for inspection. Who told you to take that helmet off? She's already been riding him up at that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up another good point, though, is that Slip possibly could have been the trooper that dies.
Well, it was confirmed in the supplement book. I forget what it's called. It's called the Force Awakens Dictionary or something like that. We'll put it up on the screen right now. But in that book, they confirmed that it is Slip that passes and that touches his helmet and leaves the blood behind.
Interesting.
And that's what it was like the last. It's like, oh my God, because he always said, "You're one of us. You're one of us."
But another interesting thing that you told me was that he excels at all these simulations. It reminds me a lot of Ender's Game.
Yeah.
That because Ender,
exactly,
he excelled at all the simulations, and even to the Harrison Ford's actually in that movie, and even to the point where they go on their final mission, and he thinks it's a game, and they win, and it's like, holy shit, they just committed genocide.
So and like freaked out. That was actually I felt
I like that movie,
an underrated movie.
I
a
agree.
Lot of people talk shit about it, but
people talk shit about it. I liked it.
Yeah, I did too. But that aside, yes, in simulation, Finn was number one every single time. That's why he says, "Give me a blaster. I'm good with a blaster." He was good with hand. How could he go toe to toe with a Knight of Ren with a saber? He practiced that. He was in training. He had actual combat training using staffs and handheld weapons. So he was not a stranger to that. And he was not only was he trained, he performed at a very high level.
But he's just not a killer.
Right. And then that final
as he stabbed that dude.
Right.
The lightsaber.
Exactly. But the guy who calls him out, traitor, who's buzzing online, they're calling him TR-8R, is actually also in the book. That is Nimes. Because before...
Oh, so that's one of his buddies.
That's one of his buddies.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one of his buddies. It's like, traitor! They were really, they're like all about the First Order.
Do you think we'll ever get
never was.
Those, like, that a lot of any of that backstory paid off?
I
mean, it kind of has paid off already, but like,
Here's something interesting. For Episode 8, as of right now, Entertainment Weekly has been the official source for Star Wars. Lucasfilm releases everything through EW.com.
I think that's Disney in general.
Or Disney in general, right? Yeah. So, EW.com, in their current, they just released a new lineup. Here are the official Star Wars releases to come.
I saw that the next, 5 years or whatever.
And in 2020, Boba Fett is coming, by the way. But they did not list John Boyega as lead cast in Episode 8.
Really?
Yes. So, I think...
Wait, they already listed who's going to be in the cast for each of these?
It said starring, primary cast, Mark Hamill, Poe Dameron, Daisy Ridley.
Interesting.
He's always been top billing since Harrison Ford, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley. That's how this movie has been built from the very beginning. In this one, it's Hamill, Ridley.
So what do you think his plight's going to be?
Well, I think there's a very, very telling scene when she kisses him on the forehead and she's, we will see each other again. I believe that. I think that's foreshadowing they're going to have a long time apart. He's pretty critically injured. Episode 8 is going to focus on him. And I believe Episode 8 has to somehow focus on Luke. The backstory, the Knights of Ren, why he's on the island, and who Daisy Ridley is. And if you've seen the movie, you should come to the same conclusions as us. She's a Skywalker.
Yeah.
Star Wars has always been a Skywalker story.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty obvious. Even Maz Kanata kind of gives that away. A lot of people are saying she could be a Kenobi. There is some homage to Ben Kenobi. I mean, Kylo Ren's name is Ben Organa Solo or whatever. So who knows? I mean, I don't know. If we're going to go back to those backstories with Finn, I think we're going to go to Luke's backstory next. Luke and Daisy.
I think so too.
Luke and Rey's backstory.
Luke's going to be like the Yoda.
Did
you see that casting thing that just came out?
No.
So there was and it wasn't necessarily a breakdown.
I saw a Rogue One thing, but not.
No, there was an Episode 8 thing that came out. Open auditions in New York.
Okay.
For what were they called? They're like not Jedi Knights, but they're like Jedi Temple something.
Interesting. Do they become the Knights of
Ren?
Well,
this is the thing. Now, this is two theories about this. One, I think it could be. Well, the two theories I have. One, it's either going to be the Jedi or the people that Luke was training with Kylo,
right,
or with Ben, or it's going to be the future. He's building up a new Jedi army.
Right.
It's either or. It can't be.
Well, here's the thing. They are also, the rumor is, coming out of the UK, they're recreating Skellig Michael, that's the island that last shot took place in, inside of Pinewood Studios.
Oh, really?
So I believe those ruins that you see are the very first Jedi temple, and I think we're going back there.
Oh yeah, that's where the training's going to be.
That's where the training is, and I think if they're recreating it inside of Pinewood, I think we're going back for a backstory.
Interesting. Would that be our first flashback in Star Wars history?
It very well could be. I mean, they're still saying that Han Solo, Harrison Ford, is booked for episode 8.
I'm excited about that. Now, I think that's going to be a crazy fever dream or some kind of like the training that that Luke went on with Yoda, where he sees he fights Darth Vader, and he sees his face in the helmet. It could be something similar to that.
I think it's something with Kylo Ren for sure. I think he's obviously a conflicted, tortured soul. Han Solo, I mean,
you think it could be a funeral because how are you gonna?
I do believe that we have to
pay respects
to Han Solo. I think the Resistance is going to pay homage to tribute to General Solo. There's going to be a funeral scene. There has to be.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He is a war hero.
He changed the galaxy in a big way. He destroyed the first Death Star.
You know, I think, and that's one thing.
Or played the major
So
part.
on my third watching, there's a few things that I find really interesting.
Yeah.
And these are just minor things, but you pick up on them. Is when Han Solo is talking to General Leia.
Right.
And he says, you went back to doing what you were best at, and I went back to doing what I was best at.
Right.
And she also says to him, when I left, I wish I would have never let Ben stay.
Yeah.
Or I sent him away.
Sent him away.
And because I lost both of you that day. Now let's talk about theories.
Right.
I think that Han was always looking out, watching Rey. Like Luke knew that was
100%.
daughter. He had to have been like
100%.
the kind of Ben Kenobi watching out for her.
There's a couple of moments in the film where he's just looking endearing on her, like it was family, like that when he's offering her a job and he's just
I don't have to be nice to you. I won't be.
And
nice
then
to you.
the thing when she's co-piloting in the Falcon and he's just like. He's just really he's just taken with her. Like
Also, that's a funny thing too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something else I picked up on, and I think obviously she's a Skywalker.
Right.
I believe.
Right.
But another thing is too, I think that the way that she is with technology and stuff and tinkering with things, that's a lot of Anakin.
It is.
It's a lot. It reminded me a lot of like Episode 1 where you see young Anakin.
Yeah.
You know, obviously building C-3PO and building his pod racer.
Right.
And then I was like, wow, that's so much. It's very reminiscent.
Again, going back to that final scene when she's fighting Kylo Ren, and because she's completely untrained, she doesn't know how to use the Force, right? It's very suggestive that she dipped into the dark side to get that boost, right?
Well, yeah, and like you can see too before the ground broke apart that she had thoughts about striking him down.
She did,
and ending it right there.
And in the script, there's supposedly a line that says, "Finish him." I don't know if like Mortal Kombat or whatever. Finish him. No, but like supposedly kill him or something like that. Snoke, and I'm assuming it's Snoke's voice, but that was removed from the film.
Interesting. You know what? I have a question because I don't know why every single thing that comes on Star Wars in my Facebook thing, I'll go and watch it, and I watched all the bloopers from episode 1 to 6 today. There's like a thing.
I haven't seen those in a long time.
Seen them in a long time. When we did Star Wars Celebration back in May or March or whatever it was, April, we were at the Ian McDiarmid panel, the Emperor Palpatine, and then he said something and almost kind of let it slip that he could possibly come back, and then he jokingly said maybe a clone, and like people were like, oh. Is that even a possibility?
Well, everyone's talking about Plagueis, right?
Yeah.
But Plagueis, supposedly in the book Aftermath, they destroy all the theories of Plagueis being able to come back. I have not read that novel. But in episode 3, he lets us believe that he knows Plagueis' secrets to defeat death.
Yeah.
Right? Now, there's a lot of things like people are saying, well, the themes match up. When he's talking about Plagueis, the theme music underneath him is the same theme music that is playing underneath Snoke. I haven't compared them note for note. I don't know if that's the absolute truth. From what I understand, they're extremely similar, but I don't know if they're identical.
But it's not a stretch to assume.
It's not a stretch to assume that. But what we do know is that in that episode 3 scene, he says he lets Anakin believe that he knows Plagueis' secrets to cheat death.
That's right.
So they distorted the view. He's scarred. He's old, and we've seen what time has done to the Emperor. I mean, from episode 1 all the way to episode 4, or 4 or 5, and even 6. Obviously, he ages, and he distorts over time. It seems like. So I have no problem believing that is actually still the Emperor. I mean, who would be so motivated to go after Skywalker?
A Skywalker, yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Who has the biggest grudge against the Skywalker?
Yeah, that would be Palpatine. I would almost. I can't think of one person in the entire franchise that has a bigger grudge against Skywalkers other than Palpatine.
The other question that I always I always had about this movie too, though, is that we don't know how the First Order kind of came about again.
Right.
It's left super vague. We know that it seems like they're an extension of the Empire.
Right.
But I mean, that's what it seems
They got
like.
real Nazi with this one, with that scene of Hux, like basically
By the way,
Hitler.
Hux is awesome.
Yeah.
Like that was a really well cast.
I like that him and Kylo have conflict.
I do
like
too.
that part of it.
I do too. But you know what else I like? I like the fact that they humanize Kylo.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, he's a crybaby, he's a whiner. It's like, dude, this guy's a fucking. I love him. I love Kylo. He's probably.
But he's not. See, people are calling him a crybaby because he throws those tantrums or whatever. But in my opinion, Vader was this all-powerful Sith Lord, most epic villain of all time. Kylo is like this unhinged, scarier version of him. I mean, he's he's reading people's thoughts, getting in their brain, forcing them unconscious.
He's like purple manning them almost.
Stopping laser beams in midair.
What a fucking sick scene that was.
So
right?
dope. I mean, doing crazy things like that, pulling people the force choke from across the room, like into his grip, freezing. That scene where he freezes Daisy Ridley, it's like terrifying. It's almost like, what's his name? Like Tennant's character in
Purple
Jessica Jones. Yeah, it's like it's
Kilgrave,
terrifying.
yeah.
In my opinion, he's the most terrifying on-screen villain ever. That's like that guy scares the shit out of me. But I thought, he's a little bit emo, and I think it's great that he's in this uncontrolled emotional state. Like he says before he kills his dad, it's tearing me apart or whatever.
Well, I think the reason that I think Kylo is such a great villain, though, is because he's unpredictable.
He's really unpredictable.
You don't know what you're going to get with him, if you're his ally or his enemy.
Oh, exactly. And I mean, and he's a great actor. Fucking Adam Driver.
Adam Driver's
fucking amazing in this movie. But even he's going to kill Han Solo, but he's so conflicted. You actually think the second time, and you just said this earlier, you're hoping for a different outcome. You actually are like, he's not going to kill him this time. He's not going to. It's not going to. Oh shit! He's crazy. He's off. Not crazy, but he's just perfectly off the hook, off the hinge.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it.
With us talking about Kylo real quick, you had actually told me a really good theory, that because we were discussing how Kylo and Rey kind of had this thing, and he's like, I know, I can feel it too, kind of thing. Popular theory right now is that they are cousins.
Yes.
This is probably true.
They're cousins.
But this is probably true anyway. Like
it's probably true.
But I like. All right, so there was one theory. This is a big theory. I don't know if it's a big theory out there.
It is a big theory. I know which one you're going with, but go ahead.
All right, so that he actually is pretty much sacrificing himself to be on the dark side because he knows there has to be a balance to the Force, and that if he went to the light side, then she'd have to go to the dark side.
Yes. So there's a popular, they're calling it the Severus Snape theory from Harry Potter, and I know you hate Harry Potter and you don't really follow it, or
I don't hate it, I just don't know it.
Yeah, no, but they're calling it the Severus Snape theory, but it's very likely, it's very possible that he gave himself in to protect what was left of the sky. I believe that.
But it makes complete sense. After you told me, I was like,
it makes complete sense.
Damn, that makes so much sense because you could see that he's struggling.
Because I'm not convinced that. I think Han Solo knew his son was going to kill him. I'm not convinced that he didn't know that. I'm pretty sure Han knew what was going to happen.
Here's the deal with Han. I think that because he makes some interesting points too. Because to me, he's classic Han.
Yeah.
He completely writes off his son as like, my son's dead.
Yeah.
Like there's no going back.
No.
He's not the same guy anymore. He's dead. And for that scene, I think he knew he was going to die, and I think he knew that he had to die in order to hopefully make his son realize
Right.
that he's still there.
And that's where they're saying it's like the Harry Potter thing. It's like what now of Dumbledore being killed by Snape so that Harry could live, basically.
Does that happen in
Yeah,
Harry
that's
Potter?
how it goes.
Spoiler
So spoiler alert, yeah. So he's given himself up. They dropped Rey on Jakku, right? We know this now. We're assuming that Skywalker was married, right? So she wasn't immaculately conceived from a man.
Right.
So he has a wife. She was killed. The nephew was taken. Luke has to go off in hiding. Yeah, I don't see it as a big stretch for him to give himself to save his family.
I agree, and I think that it's kind of like, it's crazy because I never always think of Princess Leia, General Leia ever having like the Force,
right?
But you can tell that she knows that something's wrong, and
and when Han dies, she knows Han's dead. There's no question in her. She knows. She felt it. She knew.
Do you think with all of Han's gallivanting around the galaxy that she could have found another lover and maybe made some more kids? Or do you think that Han possibly had some... Han seems like a dude that you probably had some...
Han could definitely have kids. But I kind of get the impression that Han is noble, that after his son was born, that he wasn't like that anymore. He's older, he's up there in years, he's just running from the fight, quote unquote, the only fight, as Maz puts it.
I love Maz.
Yeah.
She's such a great character.
She is a great character. A lot of people have a problem with her, too.
Why?
I'm not sure why. That she was fairly undeveloped and put in a pretty vague scene, but I think that was important.
I think, the great thing I like about Maz Kanata is the fact that there's backstory that's left to be told, and you know that she has a pretty rich history somewhere down the line.
Oh, for
and they
sure.
said she's been running that place for 1,000 years.
And she didn't know who Rey was. Tell me who the girl is. And then we're like, oh, yeah, we want to hear too, right? But how did she get Luke's lightsaber? And then that's what she says. It's a great question for another time. So there's more backstory.
And she's not dead.
No.
She's not dead.
No, there was actually a scene omitted from the final cut because she goes back to
Maz does.
Yeah, she goes back with everybody to the
Rebel base.
I keep calling it a rebel base.
The
Resistance. She goes, so she's there now after the destruction. She's with the Resistance as of right
now. And that's interesting too, because all right, so episode 4 through 6, they're called rebels,
right?
And this is important for a few reasons. Rebels means that they rose up and obviously rebelled against the Empire, which makes sense. This is called the Resistance,
and there's a very good reason for that.
Is different than rebel, but the Resistance is something that's doesn't want to get oppressed.
Exactly. So the Resistance is unofficially connected with the Republic, right? So you have the Republic, but you have the First Order, and the Resistance is doing things that the Republic can't do, right? So, and I have another question: is Coruscant destroyed?
I don't know.
Do we know that for sure? Is anybody?
You said the Republic.
Yeah. Do we also know what planets were destroyed when the bigger
4 planets?
But do we know? They said the Senate. So
the Senate.
The Senate isn't Coruscant.
Yeah, so Coruscant, there's a character called Coruscant. You only see her in one scene where she looks up right before the destruction.
Okay, that's who that is.
That's Coruscant. She was their the Resistance's inside person in the Senate.
Okay, I would have never have known that.
Yeah, so, but she's only in one scene. She might have been in another scene that's been omitted. So, she dies. So obviously she's on the planet. So, Coruscant was giving the Resistance the intel that they needed to operate.
Interesting.
So I don't know if that includes some kind of funding or whatever, but yeah, the Resistance is also small. Resistance is not an army.
They seem efficient, but they don't seem big.
Extremely efficient and very small.
Interesting.
And the First Order is growing fast and taking.
The First Order is huge.
Yeah.
This is kind of like what if Hitler did win?
Yes.
Kind of deal.
I mean, he was channeling Hitler in that scene when he's spitting, he's like, "We will destroy."
What a rich character Hux is, though, because I think that
there's a lot there.
I think that a lot of Imperial personnel in the past have almost been throwaways. I know, but listen, I love Grand Moff Tarkin. I think he's a great character.
Oh, great actor!
Great actor, Peter. I mean, it doesn't get better.
People clown on Star Wars sometimes for the acting, but they forget about Alec Guinness and Peter Tarkin and for that
Harrison
Ford, great performances. But yeah, go on.
So it's interesting. Hux is to me one of the first.
I said Peter. I meant Peter Cushing.
Peter Cushing, yeah.
Talking.
What Hux to me is almost the embodiment of like a badass dude. He reminds me a lot of. Do you remember Thrawn, the EU character?
Yeah.
It seems like
that's probably the most talked about EU story.
Now,
EU stories, right?
I feel like that could be that character. Almost obviously a little different.
Yeah.
But it's that dude that's coming in. He's a badass. He doesn't have to be a Jedi. Doesn't have to be a
Right.
Sith. He's just this guy that gets people to follow him.
Right.
And he's just.
Now that's interesting too, because some people are saying that we're going to see clones, and in that trilogy, the Heir to the Empire trilogy, do you remember there was a clone Jedi who was a little insane
I vaguely remember this.
in the third book?
I do vaguely remember.
I got to go back and revisit it. But people are talking that there's a theory going out that Snoke is a clone of Palpatine. So there's
That's
that.
interesting.
There's a theory of that. There's a lot of theories that people are just throwing out there just to throw out, but sometimes interesting things come out of that.
Well, listen, sometimes some of these theories are better than what we. And this isn't. I don't mean Star Wars, but I mean fandom in general.
In general,
sometimes,
especially Marvel themes.
Oh yeah. Sometimes we get theories that are, or even this with DC the Batman v Superman movie.
Yeah.
Some of these theories that we're hearing might be better than the actual thing.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I loved about Star Wars though is that coming into this, I feel like we knew a lot of theories.
Yeah.
But there was so many out there.
So many
that you didn't know what to believe. So it was almost going in with fresh eyes. Let's talk real quick about where the future is going with everything.
Okay, with this particular trilogy, or
we can talk about it all. I can talk Star Wars at this point
exactly.
all night.
Well, I think with this particular trilogy, I don't know that it ends. It seems like a big story to me.
The Skywalker story.
I mean, I think the Skywalker story might end, but I think with Episode 8, you have to go back to the first Jedi Temple, the Knights of Ren. The backstory.
Oh yeah, the Knights of Ren too.
Max von Sydow's character. What was his lore? I'm confusing it with Corsella now. Max von Sydow's character, the force sensitive dude in the beginning.
That dude, the older dude. I was gonna ask you about him. Who is that guy?
Yeah, he apparently is from the temple, the Jedi Temple.
Did he train as a Jedi?
No, I think he was working with Luke in the new Jedi.
So maybe he's like a recruiter.
Yeah, new kind of dude, some kind of mystic.
Because he clearly knows who Kylo/Ben is.
I knew you before you called yourself Kylo Ren. Yeah. And he made a reference to family, and then Kylo strikes him down, so...
Okay, so let me ask this, and obviously it's a desert planet.
Right.
But it's not Tatooine.
No.
So why was it just not Tatooine?
I don't know if there's going to ever be a reason for that, but that was like one thing I was like, it could have just been Tatooine. The only thing that I could think of was they wanted someplace even more remote than Tatooine.
Okay, but it is in the outer rim of the galaxy.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to justify some of the locations of plans, because obviously a major battle happened there. As far as we know, no major battles happened over Tatooine, and there's that salvage yard there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just coming up with theories.
Rationalizing.
Maybe because on Tatooine they would know what the Millennium Falcon was on Tatooine if it was parked there the whole time.
That's true. That's a good point. But that's why I think that Han was always looking after Rey, mainly because the Millennium Falcon was parked there.
I think that's why he shows up that fast.
He knows.
They knew she's up in the air.
Yeah, and I think that he felt some type of since he lost his son, and I'm assuming it's his only son, that he felt some type of commitment to Luke at that point to really disconcern himself with what was going on.
He definitely loved Rey.
Yeah,
he definitely loved Rey on some level, and yeah, man, it's can be. I don't know if it's a simple story or it's a complicated story. It could go either way.
It could go either way, but I'd be satisfied with either. That's the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because even if Rey does end up being Han's daughter, which I don't think it is,
right?
But if it does, I'd be happy. And if it's Luke's daughter, which I do think it is, I'm gonna be really happy. Like, it can go either way. But back to the dude that was at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you don't know any backstory on this guy. We don't as an audience.
Hey Dan, you remember Max von Sydow's character name?
Nope.
Okay. And there you have it.
He was in the movie, though.
It was lore something. Producer Junior is going to look it up for us right now. But I think there's a lot to that story. He obviously, worked with Leia, because he refers, she'll always be royalty to me. So there's so much backstory there. There's so much backstory with Poe Dameron. Now I'm hearing
What
something.
an awesome character, Poe Dameron. He's one of my favorites.
Okay, so there's a whole story of how he gets off Jakku. Okay, part of it was actually going to be in this movie. I think that in the original 3-hour cut, they just show him being rescued and taken away. But what happens in all that time? How did he become the this super dope pilot? Is he force sensitive? Now apparently there's a connection with his family and the Skywalkers.
Really?
In one of the books. I'm not sure which one. I haven't.
See, that's funny because I also heard, God, and I can't remember if it was one of the actual novels or if it was one of the comics that came out recently.
Yeah, there's so many.
That they talk about him being in some kind of relation to a family that's well known.
Right.
Now, I didn't know if that was the Antilles family, personally. Because...
well, there's one rumor, and I don't know if it's tied to any literature at this point in time. There's one thing I heard about that Skywalker, Luke's wife, was a Dameron.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which would make him and Rey some kind of
cousins
or brother and sister or something. Who knows?
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, obviously not brother and sister because then Luke would be his dad too. But
they would be like cousins.
Yeah, so probably cousins.
So then he would be like almost like second cousins, kind of with Kylo.
Yeah, it gets complicated. Like I said, it could be really simple.
Well, then again, maybe he's not related to anybody. Maybe we're just trying to make it work. Because I don't put it. I know that there's a thing out there with Finn and Lando, and I don't think there's any connection there.
Right. No, they're just like
they're just
you got two black characters.
Yeah,
they must be related. No.
I do want Lando to be in this next movie as like some kind of like senator.
I kind of feel like he has to, but I just hope that
you said he's
Billy
crazy.
D. Williams is in good shape. He didn't put together too many coherent sentences consecutively, anyways.
That's
when
that
he was
Colt
being
45.
interviewed. Yeah. I just want to see the cape. If they bring Lando back, he has to be wearing a cape.
Hey, ladies. I like Lando. He's one of my favorite characters.
Anyways. So those are some of the theories and speculations that we've been going over night and day in this edition of special edition
Wait, can we talk
Galaxy Far
Rogue
Away.
One real quick?
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk Rogue One coming up on video number 2. We'll
okay,
do it
cool.
right there. Let's do it right now.